In about a week's time, Arsenal will meet FC Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League, with the first leg slated for 9th April and the reverse fixture scheduled for 17th of the same month. Well, here is why I think Arsenal will beat up against Bayern Munich. Welcome back to the Football Tribe YouTube channel. Robert K. Sarkozy is my name. As we speak, or as I record this, Arsenal just did share the spoils with Manchester City on Sunday in a goalless draw. But before they meet AFC Bayern Munich, they will play two other Premier League games, with Luton Town coming on Wednesday, that is the 3rd of April, before playing up against Brighton and Hove Albion in the other fixture, to then go ahead and play Bayern Munich at the Emirates Stadium. On the other hand, Bayern Munich did lose to Borussia Dortmund by 2-0 in the weekend, but then will play Heidenheim in their next fixture before meeting Arsenal. With all that said and done, if both squads remain as is, almost injury-free, despite the fact that Arsenal have their concerns over Bukayo Saka, we do hope that by the time they meet Bayern Munich, he will be fully fit enough to play a game, and perhaps Thomas Partey will have gained some much sharpness to feature in that particular one as well. With all that said, here are my reasons why I think Arsenal will beat up against Bayern Munich. For starters, the home advantage. This is the UEFA Champions League night. Of course, we all know that we had not had any UEFA Champions League action in the last 7 years at the Emirates Stadium. But when it did return, Arsenal embraced it with full arms, and they had been sensational in the group stages at home. In fact, they are yet to use a Champions League game at home. In their last, beating up against FC Porto by 0-0 in normal time, and then post extra time, knocking them out on penalties there. So, remember, Bayern Munich do come in this fixture with a ban on their fans after their indiscipline in that 3-0 victory against Lazio at the round of 16, as they knocked them out by 3-1 on aggregate after both legs, with Bayern Munich having lost the first leg. But the indiscipline of their fans at home after that 3-0 victory forced UEFA to ban their fans from traveling in their next fixture, which will come at the Emirates Stadium. So what does that mean? That Arsenal will have a fully packed Emirates Stadium with only Arsenal fans roaring. And if you've noticed, in recent times, Mikel Arteta has figured out a way to work, or perhaps call upon the Arsenal fans to rise to the occasion, to make that noise, to uplift their players by supporting them all the way through, to sort of create that Anfield-like environment, or the one that we often see at the Signal Iduna Park back in Germany. That's the kind of environment that will be inside the Emirates Stadium as Arsenal host Bayern Munich. So clearly, all that Arsenal team, regardless of what team they field, they will have the backing or the full backing of their home fans. And that cannot be taken lightly, especially in the UEFA Champions League. So it is quite crucial a point that will play a big part in Arsenal's result on the night. And then the second reason for me. Whereas I did say that Arsenal fans were wrong to celebrate their draw against Bayern Munich, it also goes without saying that they relish the chance for revenge. Arsenal's pursuit for revenge, it's sort of been subtle, if you have noticed, in recent times, and they have managed to pull it off against some of their biggest rivals and other teams. We've seen it against them do it against Liverpool when they beat them by 3-1. We've seen it when they did it against Manchester City when they beat them by 0-0 at the Emirates Stadium. But prior to that, they had beaten them in the Community Shield, I think by 5-4 on penalties to win that one. They seem to be driven by that subtle feeling of revenge against teams either that have beaten them in the past or with teams that they have scores to settle with. We saw that against West Ham. Remember, prior to their 6-0 thumping of West Ham had beaten Arsenal by 3-1, knocking them out of the Carabao Cup, and then they had beaten them by 2-0 in December in the Premier League at the Emirates Stadium. And all that with other fixtures or in other moments is what they've done. So when you look at this particular fixture, the last memory of Arsenal against Bayern Munich is a bad one. It was a 10-2 aggregate, 5-1, 5-1, both home and away, as Bayern Munich thrashed Arsene Wenger's Arsenal. So clearly, Mikel Arteta will use that result or the memory of that result, the history of that context, to drive his Arsenal players into a revengeful, fixture. So I do think revenge will play a factor in this particular fixture come the 9th of April when Bayern Munich come to the Emirates Stadium. Then the other point or reason as to why I think Arsenal will beat Bayern Munich is the form. As far as 2024 is concerned, Arsenal are yet to lose a game in the Premier League. Played 9, won 8, drawn 1. The draw coming against Manchester City. Of course, we don't know at this point in time what the results will be against Luton Town and Brighton, the fixtures that will come before they meet Bayern Munich. My hope is that if Arsenal are serious in their pursuit for the Premier League title, they should be able to win those games. Perhaps not easily, but just do enough to win them. So, as far as 2024 is concerned, they've had quite good momentum. But until that point that we went into the international break, they seem to be firing on all cylinders. On the other side, Bayern Munich have sort of stumbled through their fixtures. They've just had losses here and there and some victories. In other games, they've struggled, including their very last game in which they lost to Borussia Dortmund by 2-0 at the Allianz Arena, Dortmund beating them at their home turf for the first time in almost a decade. The last time they had done that was back in 2014. And back in 2014 was the manager Jurgen Klopp was still in charge at Dortmund. He's since then left and spent 9 years with Liverpool, starting in October 2015. So clearly, it had been that long. But that is sort of part of a tale of this Bayern Munich side this year. Manager Thomas Tuchel has had his fingers burnt over time and again. And as far as the whole season is concerned, they have lost 5 league games. That's in 27 matches. They've lost, I think, 2 games at home and 3 away from home. On the other side, Arsenal have only lost 4. Of course, in the Premier League, they do play more games, in total 38 apiece for the Premier League teams, while in the Bundesliga, they do play, I think, 34 games because it's a total of 18 games in the Bundesliga. But nonetheless, they've lost more. Yes, Bayern Munich do score plenty of goals, but Arsenal have also shown that they can't score plenty of goals. The other reason, of course, or the other argument would be that Bayern Munich come into this particular tie well knowing that they have conceded the title to Bayer Leverkusen, at least according to the admission of manager Thomas Tuchel. That means that all their focus will now come to the Champions League because that's where they have hope for silverware. But then what that also implies is that it puts them under more pressure to try and win, to do everything it takes to win. Sometimes, not all teams do cope well with pressure. Not all players cope well with a lot of pressure. And it kind of looks like this Arsenal side is managing to cope with pressure. They are learning to deal with pressure. At least we saw that against Manchester City. They didn't have a good share of the ball, but they managed to just soak it in, to defend well, to defend their lines, deny Manchester City spaces in the final third. So, on the other side, whereas Bayern Munich will only have the Champions League to chase, Arsenal are still in the title chase for the Premier League title. But the same cannot be said for Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga because they are 13 points behind leaders, that is Bayer Leverkusen, at 73 points, while Bayern Munich find themselves at 60 points. So I do think that pressure will also be a factor in addition to the form that we just spoke about. So it will be quite a tale come the 9th. Still speaking about the two teams, the nature of football that both teams play. We all know that Bayern Munich love to play the free-flowing football, the fancy football, the football that sort of pushes the opponent on, and then yields more goals. And I do think that's the kind of football, or that's the kind of team that Arsenal would want to play. Whereas Arsenal have been brilliant in that sort of play, it helps them find the spaces. That means both teams may play in each other's hands, but again, who will have the advantage to win it over the other? So I think the style of football that they play will play into Arsenal's hands for Arsenal to win that game. On a given day, Thomas Tuchel knows how to hammer out his team to sort of be combative. We saw him do that at Chelsea when Chelsea beat up against Manchester City in the finals of the 2021 UEFA Champions League. Kai Havertz scoring the only goal of that particular one. We saw Thomas Tuchel beat up against Arsenal by 2-0 in the Premier League, I think in the 2021-2022 Premier League season at the start there, when Arsenal lost, I think, their first 3 games. The other being a 2-0 loss to Brentford at the GTEX Community Stadium. So Thomas Tuchel is the kind of manager that can adapt. He knows when a team is better than him in terms of playing free-flowing football and switches to be combative. But overall, at Bayern Munich, that's not the type of football they want to play. That even if he would want to be combative, at the end of the day, he will also leave room for some bit of free-flowing football. Then, the other factor is Arsenal's defensive record. Arsenal have been so brilliant this season defensively. In the Premier League, they have kept, I think, more than 11 clean sheets for them. They've conceded about 23 or 24 goals just so far this season, and we have played up to 29 Premier League games. That's an impressive record. They managed to stop Manchester City from scoring at their home turf for the first time in 57 games. That's how good their defensive record has been. William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes in that back line have been sensational. Ben White, brilliant. Jakub Kiwior, who chipped in when Takahiro Tomiyasu got injured, have been all sensational. Yesterday we did see the return of Takahiro Tomiyasu. Brilliant player. He didn't look like he had been out for long. Of course, he wasn't as sharp as we would want him to be, but just him coming back from that injury and giving us that is another testament to what more Arsenal have in their locker. And who knows, maybe by the 9th of April, maybe it comes a little too early, but who knows, maybe, just maybe, Jurriën Timber will be, in the corners of featuring on the bench. So, clearly, defensively, they've been impressive. That midfield of Declan Rice, shielding the defense, with playing alongside Jorginho, maybe it will be Thomas Partey there. They have been quite good. They know how to be compact. They know they do not always have to play very fancy football to win a football match. It is about the result at the end of the day. So, defensively, I think they are a better team. They can fend off attacks from FC Bayern Munich, which then leads us to the sort of duels or the sort of key battles that will come in this fixture. Of course, Harry Kane versus William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes. They have Gabriel Magalhaes personally has defended Harry Kane before. And of course, in the last fixtures, that was last season when Arsenal managed to beat Tottenham home and away by 3-1 and 2-0 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in the second leg. We saw that Harry Kane was fended off. In the first leg, he was reduced to a single penalty, which, he scored. So, and then we are talking about a defensive partnership that managed to fend off, a strong Braut Erling Haaland. Denied him a sniff at goal in 3 fixtures versus Manchester City. The Community Shield, the first leg at the Emirates, and in the second leg at the Etihad Stadium. So clearly, they are capable. Ben White, versus Jamal Musiala, or it is Leroy Sané versus Jakub Kiwior and Takahiro Tomiyasu. You do think all those players have the ability to fend off those attacks, to soak it in and grind it out. So Arsenal's defensive brilliance will quite be a key factor in that fixture against Bayern Munich. So those are the key reasons why I do think that Bayern Munich will lose to Arsenal in the first leg. We did speak about form. Bayern Munich do not feature very well away from home. In their last 5 fixtures away from home in the German Bundesliga, they've lost 2, drawn 1, and won 2. So clearly, being away from home is not something they really fancy. When it comes to the UEFA Champions League, their last away fixture was a 1-0 loss to Lazio. So clearly, if that doesn't send a message to this Arsenal team that Bayern Munich are beatable on the road, then I don't know what will. I really don't know what will. Let's dive a little deeper into their squads. The kind of starting lineup would expect from this Bayern Munich side, assuming that most of their players will be available. Of course, in goal, it could be Manuel Neuer, very brilliant goalkeeper, lots of experience in this competition. So that is quite a factor for Bayern Munich. At right back, in recent times, they've been playing their Joshua Kimmich, given some of their injury concerns, among other factors. They've been playing their Joshua Kimmich, very, very brilliant player who has, I think, 7 assists this season and 1 goal in all competitions, if my memory serves me well. And of course, in centre back, they do have quite a number of options. Matthias de Ligt, Dayot Upamecano, they do have a Kim Min-jae, the former Napoli defender. So they do have an Eric Dyer who they signed from Tottenham in January. So, and then a brilliant Alphonso Davies at left back. So if I were to guess, I would think that because Dayot Upamecano was given a red card in their fixture against Lazio in the first leg. So if you're Thomas Tuchel, probably he may likely to go with Eric Dyer and Matthias de Ligt in that centre-back partnership, and then Alphonso Davies at left-back. Then in midfield, they do have an on-form Leon Goretzka. I think he has about 4 goals and 8 assists so far this season. They do have a youngster there in Alexander Pavlovic, very, very brilliant player. And then, of course, you add in Thomas Muller supporting them in the role of number 10. And the forward line of Hurricane, Jamal Musiala on one side and Leroy Sané on the other. Of course, they would then have a rich bench of the likes of Kingsley Coman, who they can call on to change things up. It's quite a brilliant squad, although results have not really largely gone their way this season. So that would be my predicted starting 11 for that Bayern Munich side. When you look at Harry Kane, very on-form player, involved in about 47 goals this season. Just himself, 47 goals. That's 37 goals in all competitions and 10 assists. You have a Leroy Sané who has a 21 goal involvement, 9 goals, 12 assists. You have a Jamal Musiala who has a 19 goal involvement, 12 goals, 7 assists. All these are brilliant, brilliant players. And I think Thomas Muller has an involvement of about 12, 8 assists and about 4 goals. If I do stand to be corrected on the stats. But that's the kind of team we are talking about. They are clearly capable. They do really have players that can hurt you. But I do think Arsenal will be able to match them at the Emirates Stadium. On the Arsenal side, I do not think I would expect much changes. In any case, if there are changes to be made, Mikel Arteta may make those changes in the next 2 Premier League games when his side face Luton and Brighton in preparation for that Bayern Munich game. But we also know Mikel Arteta to be the kind of manager that goes one game at a time, not wanting to plan so far in front. So, on the Arsenal side, we would expect David Raya at goal, Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba at centre back, Ben White at right back, and Takahiro Tomiyasu at left back. I do think that Tomiyasu, if he manages to play the next 2 games well, regardless whether he comes off the bench, he could be the one to start against Bayern Munich. That's what my gut feeling tells me. And of course, in that midfield, Jorginho, Declan Rice, and Martin Odegaard for the midfield 3. We could see a swap of Thomas Partey for Jorginho should Thomas Partey manage to regain his sharpness really quick. That means in the next 2 games, even if it gets 10 minutes, 15 minutes each, you never know. But that's my thinking. And up front, of course, Kai Havertz to lead the lines, and then Gabriel Jesus on one side and Leandro Trossard. The reason as to why I'm thinking that is I'm thinking Bukayo Saka may not be fully fit to start, while we all know Gabriel Martinelli is just also returning from injury. But reservation, should those 2 players, Gabriel Martinelli and Bukayo Saka, be fully fit, they will definitely start that game instead of Gabriel Jesus and Leandro Trossard. But that's the kind of picture that I do expect from these sides. That's what I do expect from the managers in terms of assembling their teams. Of course, Arsenal fans, I do not think they will be quick to ask for the likes of Emile Smith-Rowe, Fabio Vieira. Those can only be substitutes depending on how the game is going. Of course, all this will come at a point, all this game will come at a moment when Bayern Munich do have those players that will have a point to prove. Especially Harry Kane, we all know his record against Arsenal is stellar, often almost always scores against them. There is an Eric Dyer, former Tottenham player. They both played in those London derbies. They know what facing Arsenal means. Leroy Sané was formerly in the Premier League at Manchester City. He knows a thing or two about Premier League teams. Then, lastly, is Serge Gnabry. Serge Gnabry, a former Arsenal player who went on loan to West Bromwich Albion, and I do remember Tony Pulis then being the manager, belittling him, saying he had not been ready. And then eventually he signed to Forsberg, Arsene Wenger saying Forsberg was just a cover-up. He was destined to end up at Bayern Munich. And indeed he ended up at Bayern Munich, where he has done incredibly well. But this season is not been as sharp. But you never know. Usually former players, once given the chance, they often have a point to prove. So you never know. So that's the kind of picture. That's the sort of game that I do expect personally. Those are the reasons as to why I think Arsenal will beat up against Bayern Munich in the first leg. When it comes to the actual score, I'm not sure. But all I know is that Arsenal will need a goal margin of at least 2 or more goals if they are to have a strong chance of knocking out Bayern Munich from the UEFA Champions League over 2 legs. Because while they will have all the home advantage at the Emirates Stadium, the reverse will be true when they go to the Allianz Arena on the 17th of April, when Bayern Munich are at home and you only have about 2,000 or 3,000 traveling Arsenal fans inside an 80,000 seater of a stadium. So clearly, Arsenal will need to exploit their home advantage to its best, so that when they travel to the Allianz Arena, they just need perhaps a draw or grind out a fixture the way they did at Manchester City to ensure that they advance to the semi-finals. Well, that's it. That's what I think. Those are my views. Do let me know if you think there's any other factor that I've left out. Any other factor that you think I've left out, or where you think you disagree, where you think you agree with me. Do let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, stay blessed and I'll see you next time.